Live from NPR News, I'm Dale Willman. U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff is in Israel today. This is his first trip to that country since May, and it comes a week after ceasefire talks with Israel and Hamas stalled in Doha, Qatar. NPR's Emily Fang explains the significance of Witkoff's visits.
Witkoff is going to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to discuss the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the release of hostages held in Gaza. A person familiar with the details but who is not authorized to speak publicly tells NPR. Israel began letting more aid in this week following growing global condemnation of its restrictions on letting food into Gaza. President Trump this week directly contradicted Israel's own prime minister, Netanyahu, saying that there is starvation in Gaza, and said the First Lady has also seen photos of hungry children in Gaza, calling those photos terrible. Also this week, the United Kingdom and Canada joined France in saying they will recognize a Palestinian state in September, depending on certain conditions. Emily Fang, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
President Trump says it will be very hard to make a trade deal with Canada after its prime minister said Wednesday the country will recognize Palestine as a state beginning in September. The recognition is contingent on the Palestinian Authority committing to a number of things, including holding elections. This week's killing of a Palestinian activist in the West Bank by a Jewish settler is being widely condemned. As NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports, the person killed contributed to this year's Oscar-winning documentary, No Other Land.
France condemned the killing of Palestinian activist Alda Hatalin and violence by, quote, all extremist settlers, noting that settlers have killed 30 people since 2022. It said it was ready to sanction Israeli officials who support settlers. Hatalin helped make the film No Other Land about settler expropriation of Palestinian land. A video captured on Monday does not show who shot Hatalin, but it does show an Israeli settler, Enon Levy, firing his gun wildly toward residents of Hatalin's West Bank village at the time of the killing. The EU has sanctioned Levy, and so did the U.S., until President Trump lifted those sanctions. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, the West Bank.
The Department of Homeland Security is offering signing bonuses of up to $50,000 for new recruits who join ICE. The offer is being made for new deportation officers, lawyers, and investigators. ICE is using recruiting posters similar to those from World War II in a campaign promoting the hiring spree. In Texas, Republican legislators are releasing a new redistricting map that could fulfill President Trump's desire for more GOP seats in Congress. The National Democratic Redistricting Committee, meanwhile, is now signaling that it could be open to partisan gerrymandering in other states, as NPR's Hansi-Lo Wong tells us.
This Texas redistricting proposal by Republican state lawmakers could help the GOP pick up 5 more congressional seats after next year's midterm election. New district lines in Texas and other states may determine whether Republicans keep control of the U.S. House or lose it to the Democrats. In a statement, former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder says the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, which he now chairs, does not, quote, oppose on a temporary basis responsive actions to ensure the foundations of our democracy are not permanently eroded, unquote. But any Democratic push to redo congressional maps may face legal hurdles. In California, an independent commission, not the legislature, is responsible for redistricting. And in New York, the state constitution would need to be amended to allow the redrawing of maps at this point of the decade. Hansi-Lo Wong, NPR News.
President Trump says Brazil will have one of the highest tariffs he's imposed on a country. A 50% tariff on all Brazilian goods takes effect on August 6th. As NPR's Carrie Kahn reports, Trump signed an executive order yesterday justifying the duties while also exempting a long list of Brazil's exports.
Trump says Brazil deserves the high tax because it violates human rights, undermines the rule of law, and is politically persecuting its former president. Brazil's ex-far-right leader, Jair Bolsonaro, is facing charges of attempting a coup to stay in power after losing the 2020 election. The U.S. Treasury also sanctioned a Brazilian Supreme Court justice for rulings it characterized as abuse of power and censoring opponents. Trump's executive order does include a long list of tariff exemptions, including orange juice exports and aircraft parts and planes. Brazil provides nearly half of all OJ consumed in the U.S., and Embraer, the Brazilian aircraft manufacturer, warned of layoffs of U.S. workers if hit by the steep tariffs. Carrie Kahn, NPR News, Sao Paulo.
The National Transportation Safety Board is holding 3 days of hearings on the mid-air crash between a regional jet and a military helicopter near Washington, D.C. earlier this year. As NPR's Joe Hernandez reports, testimony so far has focused on altitude discrepancies and the crowded D.C. airspace.
The crash occurred at 278 feet of altitude, even though the Army Black Hawk helicopter shouldn't have been flying higher than 200 feet in that area. Yet several Army representatives said it's not uncommon for barometric altimeters to have discrepancies of that amount or more. Witnesses also testified about the crowded airspace around Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, or DCA. There had been concerns in the past about Army helicopter routes passing near the busy airport, as well as discussions about eliminating or changing the route. The NTSB will also hear testimony on air traffic control at the airport, collision avoidance technology, and more. Joe Hernandez, NPR News, Washington.
A man has been arrested in Springdale, Arkansas, in connection with the deaths of 2 people last weekend at Devil's Den State Park. David and Amanda Brink were killed in front of their children while hiking in the park. The suspect has been charged with 2 counts of capital murder. Police have not given a motive for the deaths. This is NPR News.